Hi there, I'm Trevor Coote, and this is Business is Fucking Hard, the podcast where business owners pull back the curtain and talk about the realities of owning a business. We'll hear their stories, learn some lessons, and have some fun along the way. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we are joined by Susie Bishop. Susie is the founder and owner of 74 Doors Professional Organizing. Launching her business during the COVID-19 pandemic, Susie turned her passion for creating calm and efficient spaces into a growing business. From Saskatchewan to Calgary, Susie's journey is one of resilience and growth. Join us as we explore her story and the valuable lessons she's learned. I hope you enjoy this episode. Susie Bishop, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. We were introduced by a previous guest, Jess Tatu. Folks that might be listening today can go back and listen to her story as well. She's had quite a journey in her business, her business story. And she introduced us because she thought that you have a great story to share as well. So I'm looking forward to this. I think we'll, as I do with everyone, we'll just get started with what was your introduction to business and to entrepreneurship? At what point did that happen in your life?
My dad was an entrepreneur, so I was raised with someone always getting out there, thinking outside the box. I joined the RCMP. I grew up just outside of Calgary and joined the RCMP and moved to Saskatchewan. And in September, before COVID, my husband lost his job. And so I started the process of what are we going to do now, and put together all the pieces to start my own business, and started September 2020, right during the lockdown.
Wow. Okay. So before like that, not a journey that we hear often, that COVID kind of prompted initiative to start a business. So, but let's back up. What did your dad do? What was that exposure like? Did you help out in the business, or was it just watching his kind of challenges when he'd come home at night and gripe about his day?
Yeah, completely gripe. He was a contractor, so
okay.
Summertime, crazy busy. We never saw him. All the stress, and he hated doing his books, is what I remember as a kid. So it didn't help out, but just saw the ups and downs, but mostly the freedom and the ability to work around what he wanted to work around.
Yeah. I can picture, especially, prior to Excel spreadsheets and that kind of thing, sitting at the kitchen table and working through the finances.
Yeah.
and you watching that happen. Yeah. Okay. And then it was, I'm assuming, longer than the brief time that you gave it in your introduction, but your time at the RCMP. What was that? How long were you with the RCMP, and were you with them during, like, when we started into COVID and when you started having the thoughts about business?
No, I was not with them for a long time. So I have 3 older kids, and when they were really young, I joined the RCMP, and I couldn't find childcare. So my stint with them was quite short. I was closer to a really small town in Saskatchewan. So in between then, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had 5 kids, so I decided I'd rather be a mom than a member, and stayed home with them from 2007 until 2019. So any of my work experience was expired, and that's why I thought, what can I do to kind of pull together everything I love and everything I've been doing for free and start a business?
Yeah. Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit before we get into the starting the business side. What were you doing for free, and kind of with whom, and how much of your life did it occupy? That kind of thing.
Being a mom, honestly, what I have learned having 5 kids is time management, organizational skills, how to make your life easier, your home function better. And the aesthetics of it all. So my brother's a realtor, watching him prep homes for sale. So that's one of the services we offer now, is helping clients decide what they're going to truly need to pack, because it always costs to move things, prep to sell, all that kind of thing.
you're just to build a connection there. I grew up in a house with 5 kids as well.
Oh, did you?
And
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hear this often in
I
today's
know.
world.
I know.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
sure you got a lot of what my mom got was, are they all yours?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you
Most
go up.
people assume it's some kind of a
Yeah,
split. Yeah. No,
yeah,
they're all
exactly.
mine.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. A blended household or something.
Hmm.
Um, so the environment that's created with let's call it the environment rather than chaos that's created with 5 kids and all under one roof, and you're taking what you were able to do to streamline the household. And what was it in 2020 that made you and your husband say, this could be a business idea?
He, unfortunately, when he lost his job, his mental health quickly deteriorated. So he was quite literally fighting for his life during that time. So for me, this was a way to try to keep it together in every way for my kids. And I found doing this was really therapeutic.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of silly, but the joy and the momentum in people's lives when they make little tiny shifts, it spreads into every area of their life. And so to physically see a difference and then also to go back and have them become like friends, it's really been meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, we don't put enough emphasis on those little things and the ripple effects that they have in our lives, right? um so I so the motivation was a little bit of a giving you something to kind of anchor your life during all the craziness that everyone experienced in different ways around COVID and job loss and those kinds of things. What did the initial concept look like? Was it you sitting on the couch one day and just saying, you know what, I think I can do this for other people? Or was it like a really masterful business plan that you sat down and said, okay, if I go out, and what would the market uptake be, and what kind of research can I do to see if this is going to be successful? Or was it just talking to your brother and saying, hey, if I help your clients, will you pay me or something?
No, it was ignorance is bliss.
Sure.
100% flying by the seat of my pants and knowing that my my motivation behind wanting to have a business was entirely so that I could be everything I needed to be for my kids when they needed it. So regardless of what was going on in the outside world, I started looking at what I had learned during my time with the RCMP, during that fun training, and then being a mom. And I found a course through a company in the States. I took that for the first 6 months, and then really went from there. So no business plan, just throwing it out there, seeing who I could connect with. And I was really lucky to be booked. People allowed me into their homes right from the start.
And what did that look like to when you say throwing it out there? Like, was it social media posts? Did you
Yeah.
actually start an actual incorporated entity, or were you just sole proprietor and you just said, I'm going to start doing this for people, please respond?
So initially, yes. Well, and I still am a sole proprietor, although I have
Okay.
2 locations now. Just social media, 100%, and that's all I've ever done. Been very lucky to be booked out. My biggest challenge is having enough people to keep up with the work that we have.
Okay. So let's talk about what that growth looked like. We're approaching 4 years after the September of 2020 when you first launched. What did that progression? What did the early days look like? I'm assuming it was you just responding and going out and assisting people, or were you able to hire staff, or did you need to hire staff right away in order to accommodate?
First 2 years, 100% just me.
Yeah.
And yeah, just working in people's homes around my kids' schedules, and then eventually getting busy enough and having enough requests that I hired one lady, and I got lucky with her. She's she's a unicorn rock star. So I thought, oh, it won't be so hard to hire more of those. But as everyone knows, that doesn't always happen. So that's been a challenge to find the right people, because oftentimes we're dealing with families that have lost someone, or they're going through like even during COVID. One of my clients, their 3-year-old daughter was in the hospital throughout going through chemo, right? So they had hired me into their home. So it takes the right person. Is a big part of what I do, is matching the right people together. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the service that you provide, where you're getting called into somebody's home who's dealing with kind of this stressful situation, whether it's and you pointed that out, the child with cancer or other scenarios. What's the service that you're providing that would prompt them to give you a call?
I think the overall feedback we get is just a sense of calm and peace, which is obviously needed during those times, and give them the time back that they need to put it elsewhere. In that circumstance, one of her husband had quit his job, and so she was running back and forth to the hospital, and they just couldn't manage keeping their other daughter going to sports and their kitchen. And so we provide the service of making their home run in an optimum way, so everything takes less time.
So what would some of those examples be of optimizing the efficiency of a home?
Different example, a man who had a lot of medical equipment and a very small home, and so just finding storage solutions for that equipment. In that instance, they had a lot of storage under their bed, and so we will often need to buy extra products, so we'll help bring those with us when we come. Got all the medical supplies under the bed, the things that he needed to use on a regular basis, made those accessible to him so he could reach, because he was then in a wheelchair.
Right.
It's not always that difficult, or those types of challenges that we're facing. Sometimes it's lighter, blended families or a marriage or that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like efficiency solutions in the home, typically to do with kind of storage solutions and layout and that kind of thing.
Yes, and also an example would be if someone has lost a family member, just helping them. I've had 2 deaths in the last 2 years, so I can really relate to what that feels like to go through those sentimental items. And sometimes you need a little space, but sometimes you also need a kick in the butt to know that it feels really good when you finally make some of those decisions that you just don't want to make. Yeah.
And that really, so with that context, going back to the comment about really identifying the right people in your organization, matching them based on those scenarios and what the client might need and what the client is going through, is really, really important.
Yes, and starting out had no idea that would be one of the things I'm doing 4 years later, but it's a really big part of what's going on for sure right now.
Was there an evolution of that over time, where in the early stages you were mostly just working with families, as you pointed out, that are moving, or working with realtors for staging or whatever that might look like, and then you started to get into more of the complex and scenarios, helping people kind of manage life situations as well as home efficiencies?
100%. And this is going to sound really woo-woo, but what's going on in your own life, you end up attracting. So when I first started, it wasn't any of what is happening now. And that's a very good question, because that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah. So I build on that a little bit for me. So as your life has evolved, or maybe your understanding of what those needs are for other people, the business has kind of brought those types of clients to you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, without publicly putting out a lot of my story, I have attracted people who are going through the same circumstances that I went through. So definitely can have a compassion and understanding for what they're going through and help them through that journey that I've already been through.
Yeah. So let's talk about the kind of, again, that growth piece of the business. You started in now I can't decide if I'm right. You started in Saskatoon.
I did, yes. So I had been
Yeah,
living
and
in Saskatoon, started my business, working alone, hired my unicorn, and she's still with me, had been working, and then we just got busier. I decided I would move back to Calgary. I grew up in the Calgary area and wanted to keep Saskatoon going, and so now we have five girls working there. All but one are moms, which I love because my personal goal with my business is not at all right now about, sure, I want to pay my bills and I want to take care of my kids, but it's mostly to enable me to have the time to work around their schedule.
right.
So the ladies in Saskatoon do the same, which works out well. If anybody's sick, they know what it's like. Again, that understanding, they'll step in, and it's a really great team working together over there.
And then how many do you have in Calgary now? How long did it take to establish the business and grow in Calgary?
I moved just a year ago in July. Came in a little overconfident because I thought
Okay.
during COVID, people let me into their homes. I grew up here. It's not going to be a big deal. And it took a while to find my feet. I was very grateful to have Saskatoon still going. I've just probably the last 4 months, it's starting to get busy. So I have one lady helping me here now. And I'm glad that it worked out that way because I wasn't ready to handle all that it would have taken. When I first moved here, if I had been as busy as I wanted to be, I probably would have fallen apart. So in the long run, it's been
Right.
really good.
And what does managing the shop in Saskatoon look like for you then? How hands-on are you from a distance?
Thank goodness for technology. So I do
Yeah.
all of the intakes, the Zoom calls, just meeting new clients and doing what we discussed, trying to decide who to partner in which project.
Yep.
And then work together with them if there's any products needed. And I'm out there about every 3 or 4 months, going out next week. So hands-on to the point of definitely working with the clients ahead of time. Sometimes I do work virtually as well, which people find a little odd, but especially during COVID was great. Had some calls from New York and all over the place to help people during, go through their stuff. So literally sit like you and I are and help them do if I was there, walk through what I would do.
That's super interesting. I want to unpack that in a second, but I do want to go back to your comments around the hiring, the human resources, the people aspect of your company, and it doesn't sound like it is. You've laid it out very very well. It's such an important piece. It's an important piece in every company. But with what you're doing, the fact that your people are going to be in your clients' homes, typically, we'll unpack the virtual piece in a second, but typically in their homes, there's definitely an empathetic or an emotional intelligence side of things that starts to apply. And you referenced the first hire being a unicorn. You kind of alluded to the fact that it wasn't always like that. Tell me about some of those hiccups along the way in kind of the hiring piece and what those challenges have looked like.
Sure. Like I said, I'm very, very grateful for who I have ended up with now.
Yep.
I've
Just in case they're listening.
Yeah, no, truthfully.
You're all awesome.
That sucks. You're all awesome. Yeah, you're great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hired one really with using my heart way too much more than my head. My son had been struggling and had gone into a rehabilitation program in Langley a year ago when I moved. And I had hired a girl who had gone through a treatment center program, and she'd been out for a year and had 2 kids. And I wanted to give her a shot that I hoped someone would give my son a shot after, because she was really great, had everything I wanted, but had this background. And that was probably one of the hardest days, was when that went sideways, having to let her go, knowing the consequence to her and her family and all of those things.
Yeah.
That would have been the worst. And then just not everybody realizes. A lot of people contact me. I've been lucky. People contact me all the time that want to work with me because they think it's really pretty and really making like they see on TV of the rainbows and the bins and the prettiness. And the reality of it is it's dirty. You have to carry a lot of stuff. You're getting right in there, sometimes in people's underwear, like
Yeah.
it's not all beautiful, and that's not for everybody, and that's okay. So that's been a lot of it too, is just people realizing that it's actually pretty hard, and there's going to almost every time someone's going to be crying, and you have to be okay with that.
So maybe I need to unpack the business a little bit more. Why are so many of your clients crying?
We hold so much with all the sentiment. We have so much sentiment attached to our things, like even some old band t-shirt, and they'll pull it out of the back of their closet, haven't seen it in 25 years, and it reminds them of some guy they used to date that broke their heart. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing the things that get lost in our homes that we attach sentiment to.
And so what does that process look like for your staff to, like, is it a convincing kind of scenario, like to convince people to let go, or is it ultimately the client's decision and you just need to provide some rationale or talk through the rationale about keeping or throwing away?
It depends on the circumstance, right? Like if it's the band t-shirt they have literally not touched and will never wear, is that something they want to keep and put in a adult sentimental bin like people do for their kids and throw it away? But how many of those do you need? So for that type of thing, it's putting those questions out there. Is, do you have the room to store this crap, and are you ever going to look at it again? If not, take a picture of it, let it go. If it comes to something as fresh as a death, that one, I don't think it needs to be pushed, but the options need to be put out there of categorizing and touching the easiest things first and the hardest things last, and letting them know that sometimes it is okay to take that time, because there's a lot of pressure through social media for people to think, and I'm in no way a minimalist, but to think that they need to be all these things in order to be happy, and that's a bunch of crap. You need to figure out your own way, right?
We are a very materialistic society. We do connect so much of our emotional, just our emotions in general to material things, and it's easily done. So you breaking that connection, but also providing people kind of that freedom after, is, I can see that being difficult, and maybe some tears along the way for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had to have a difficult conversation with this employee. Were there other scenarios throughout kind of landing with this core group of 5 that you have in Saskatoon and the one in Calgary now? Ups and downs, or was it pretty straightforward after that?
Definitely people that have come in and out, but for the reasons that I said, is just not being clear. And I've gotten better on screening that a little bit and just saying, hey, heads up, this is what most people think, and this is the reality of it. Are you up for that?
Right.
So that screening process has helped minimize, but there's definitely a lot of people that came in and tried it, which is fine for a bit. You don't know what you're getting into sometimes until you get in there and really try it. So
yeah. And then I would suspect that for some people, it's not necessarily even knowing what they're getting into, but once they see the reward of it, and you spoke to that really early on around just kind of those small changes, the ripple effects of small changes in other people's lives, and seeing that and kind of feeding off of that even if it was more than a new staff person expected, those benefit, that ripple effect, the benefit of what they're doing might outweigh some of the negative that they didn't expect. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're right. And I love that you keep bringing up ripple effect. I have a quote about that on my website. Yes, the ladies that are working 100%, they love for the same reasons that I do. It fills them up to help people to the extent that, I was so grateful when I moved to Calgary. I've had quite a few people now, because people travel between Saskatoon and Calgary all the time. but clients that I had met and had only worked for in Saskatoon that have come to visit me as friends in Calgary. So you get that bond, and I've been really grateful for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, let's go back to the path that you started to go down, that I'm super curious about, the helping people virtually. And in the COVID environment, obviously that was an advantage, when at the various times during that wave of you can go and see other people, and then you can't, and then you can again. And this gave you an opportunity to kind of continue to help people. But what does that look like, kind of from, are they walking around the house with their camera on and kind of showing you things, or what does a session like that, or can a session like that look like?
Two different ways. So one is exactly that. They set up a camera in whichever area, whatever project we're working on, and we go through typically about 3 hours together, and just piece by piece, pulling things out, putting them into categories, whatever they're going to donate. We give their husband a kick in the butt, and he gets it out of the house, so it's not sitting there for 3 months. Find it a home, send them the links for products if they need, if they're far away.
Right.
And then what works best, I've found, is to set up kind of a weekly, so that they have homework left over, so a DIY in that week. They're accountable for getting that done in that before we meet again, and then moving on. The other way is a shorter time, so we'd spend an hour going through whatever their project was, whatever their goal was, and then again setting them a DIY of, and all the links for any products they might need.
Is there always? Oh, please go ahead.
I was just going to say the biggest help, I think, is, this isn't rocket science. It isn't something everyone can do, but just the accountability piece is what usually helps the most, of knowing somebody's got their back and somebody's looking out for them to get it finished, right? To not leave things laying around, because that's usually what happens to all of us. Everybody's just off the top busy right now.
Yeah, and I mean, in every aspect of life, not just in our homes and the material things. It's accountability. We're human. That's human nature. Accountability keeps us honest. Yeah, and on task. So is there always an element of purging, or can it be just kind of reorganizing and decorating kind of scenario?
Mostly, most of the clients are overwhelmed and have tried everything they can think of and read all the, and they realize it's just not going to happen on their own. So most of the time, I would say it does involve decluttering and categorizing. And then when you get down to the root of what's useful and what you love, then you're going to keep those things. There is the odd person. I always compare it to the people that really love to work out at the gym. There's a percentage of those that just get it done no matter what on their own. And those would be the people that don't need to declutter. They just need a little help to pretty it up, right? And then there's the middle ground who just need that accountability and some help to get it done.
Yeah.
So it's like a personal trainer for your home.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay. So what's next? What do you see as being kind of the direction for the company? You're still sole proprietor, 5 staff in Saskatoon, 1 and a bit or 2 people in Calgary. What's your vision for kind of the company moving forward?
This year, I really want to focus on building up the back end and training the staff, so everybody's super confident in what they're doing. I feel like I dropped the ball on that with all of the things happening in my personal life, and I don't know how often you've moved, but that's a real crap show to move. Yeah. You lose your focus, and so it's taken me this year to kind of get there. So I really want to slow down to speed up in the short term.
Yeah. And building some of that same structure for yourself, that you're instilling in others. We moved to a 700 square foot townhouse in downtown Vancouver, and if there's any element of decluttering and making decisions on stuff, that's where we are now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And what were you in before?
In Saskatchewan, we were in like a 2,500 square foot. Yeah, like your typical. Yeah.
Wow, nice work.
So we're we're progressively we're empty nesters now. It's just the two of us. So
Okay. Yeah.
daughter's off at university. So do you see scalability? Do you see growth for the bid? Like moving past kind of getting yourself established and decluttering in your own terms. What do you see an opportunity for growing the business in Calgary? Is that the goal to have a team there the same as in Saskatoon?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny. I do work with Jess. That's how obviously we are connected, and she's great at giving you a kick in the butt of like, let's get on it and get going. So yes, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Do you see, I'm pushing you on this now.
Yeah.
Do you see that for like beyond the borders of Saskatoon and Calgary?
That scares me, right? Like the chicken shit, if that's okay. In me, that scares me. Definitely could see it. I mean, the love the girls that are working for me have for this and how great it is. For sure. Need to do some more work on myself to get there so I can make it successful. Yeah.
At some point, so going off of kind of ignorance is bliss to start it all and kind of the motivations not being that you saw a gap that you want to fill or building out a really solid business plan and executing on it. Has some of that changed? Like, do you find yourself looking at more structure around even the higher, like bringing on people? You already said that you learned that along the way to give a little bit more context to the job and that kind of thing with the people you're bringing in. But do you see yourself building more structure around kind of business planning and that piece for the future of the business?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Struggling with the jumping in and figuring it out along the way will only get me so far. So that's what I had meant about not wanting to get any bigger until I do have that back end really solid. I had set up an automated system for all of the intake from my website and all of that, had hired that out. But most definitely want to solidify some things that I had just kind of jumped over.
Yeah. That I mean, that is an evolution. It's with other guests we've talked about kind of the learning to run a business, learning to own a business. The learning that comes with that is by doing, and you can't learn in school or in classes or anywhere else as much as you will learn by owning a business. And
sure.
And so applying some of that experience that you've already had to build structure and have that plan moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
You alluded to, I'm going to ask you one last thing that you already alluded to, but I want to know about the hardest day that you've had in business. If I say, what's the hardest day? Does one particular situation or scenario jump out? And if not, what's kind of the hardest situation that you've had to manage or deal with?
For me, my business of life and life have been so intertwined. So it would have been not being able to take the time. So I said I had a couple deaths. And so going back and holding it all together and keeping on working without taking any time to really deal with what had happened definitely would have been the hardest. And it turned out to be the best thing. Like I said to you, it was really healing to be able to go in and help people through all these changes. So that would have, it's not really a business hard, it was a personal hard, but it carried into my business.
Yeah, but I think it's that, we struggle with it all the time as business owners is separating that dedication to something that you've born and grown yourself, and it has become so much of your life, and differentiating and pulling away from that in order to manage the actual personal aspects of your life. And the two become so intertwined that gets nearly impossible at times.
Yeah, for sure. When I was looking at some of the questions that you ask, and I think one of the biggest things that has helped is really drawing on the most challenging times in my life. So for any women, honestly, physically childbirth,
Right.
and death,
Yeah.
and going through depth, all of those things, you realize the super hard things, they don't last time. And so in business as well, that's just really helped me get through some of the things that seem like they're, there's always people that are rescheduling, and people that are sick, and just riding those waves and learning how to know it's not going to last forever, and not getting too excited about the great days and not getting too bummed out about the real crap days, and finding that middle ground.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think there's a always balance that has to come with that stuff, right? There's an expectation or an understanding just based on experience that, like you said, the good isn't always going to last forever, and the bad isn't always going to last forever. But there's also that, you don't want to desensitize yourself too much to all of those things either. You want to be able to learn from the bad, and you want to be able to celebrate the good, and not just not ignore it or desensitize yourself to all of that that's happening as well.
Very true. Yeah.
I think there's a lot in your story connecting that, not just your personal, like that connection of personal experience, personal life to business, but that connection to your clients and to the people that you work with, whether they're your staff or the clients. One thing that has come up a bunch with folks that I have talked to on the podcast, but also even just other business owners, is this idea of loneliness. This idea that maybe not loneliness, but that you feel that you can feel alone, that every decision that you're making for the business, the risks that you're taking are yours to own. I really get the sense that you have built an environment where you have clients coming in and visiting you, even though you're in a different city now. You have a staff team that you're really close to and connected with. Does any of that ring true for you, or have you kind of built an environment where you feel like you're part of something bigger?
I do feel like I'm part of something bigger, but I think I know I'm kind of a loner, so I'm okay with it all being on my shoulders, and especially knowing that if it does, I don't know, I like the fact that win or lose, it is on me. I like that. Okay. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the isolation and the loneliness. Yeah. But I love the opportunity to be around and have that choice, but also that I can be alone and work alone. It's good for me. It works for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really great. I like that you're able to, like, so many of the things in your business, in your life, that you're able to embrace and see so much of the positive and kind of make it work for who you are. I think that's a great lesson for a lot of people. Susie, I want to say thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Thanks for opening up. And I know this isn't your favorite thing to do. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. And I think there's a lot of cool interconnection between people, our own personal lives and business that people can take away from your story. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great to talk with you.